Brian Mudd Show is on News Radio 610 WiOD.
Speaking of experiences, my theme on today's show has been optimism about the virus. There are so many reasons for this. Just talked to my top 3 takeaways about many of them, including University of South Florida's Dr. Thomas Unash, who is projecting a peak of the pandemic basically right now. Mayo Clinic, their projection tool shows Monday is the peak day. And as Dr. Unash was laying out, there has been a sharp decline in cases and also the concern about, stronger strains of the variants being out there, becoming a less of a concern. In so many words, basically working our way out of this thing because of Omicron, which was what I was optimistic about when we had the immediate information out of South Africa that even an AIDS patient, an HIV positive person, likely the person who ended up developing this strain of the virus in the first place. Guess what? They survived. So here to talk about this, always a voice of pragmatism, Patty Olinger, infectious disease expert, the executive director of the Global Biorisk Advisory Council. What say you, Patty?
How are you today? Thanks for having me, Brian.
Yeah, I'm feeling good for the reasons I was just talking about.
Oh, absolutely. Are there still concerns? There still are concerns, but the news from a standpoint of this is definitely a much milder strain or variant. And but what we are seeing, and I think that the numbers that we see is that we're seeing absentees because people are getting this virus because it's spreading very quickly. And so you're seeing people exiting from the workforce a little bit. So that's the strain that we're seeing right now. In the long run, I think we're going to be learning how to manage that and deal with that. But
herein lies, yes, and yes. And I think you're the perfect person to go in this direction with. So somewhere along the way, public officials that want to hide and be scared of life are going to have to pull their heads out of their rear ends and realize, hey, even if a lot of people get sick with this thing, if it's not that big of a deal, then we get on with life. Just anecdotally, because we didn't have people going and getting flu tested at any point previous. We've all been through bad flu seasons where most of the people we know have had the flu and get sick. And life went on somehow or another. I mean, at what point, Patty, and from your expert position as well, is it a matter for the public officials to go, look, this isn't a pandemic anymore, even if a lot of people are getting sick?
Those are all really good questions. So one of the concerns from an infectious disease standpoint that people get concerned about is that when you've had something, as we've experienced with this pandemic in the last year, where the virus is still circulating, we know that it can, come up with a new variant. There's talk about another variant in France right now. It doesn't seem to be, they don't know about it yet. They're still saying it probably isn't as bad as Delta, but they're still watching it. We know that new variants are going to come forward. As long as this virus is out there circulating at the level that it is, there is a higher chance or probability that it could reconfigure and be a very strong variant. So that's a concern from that infectious disease standpoint. But from a public health and keeping businesses running, we've got to learn how to deal with it. And you're right. We cannot be afraid to say, how do we keep businesses open, not, shutting them down, not, restricting people's activities. And again, I think what's happened is that this virus really has opened a lot of people's eyes to, how people get sick. And, relooking at how we've dealt with the flu in the past, because I think we were very cavalier. And we've had some years where 80,000 people died here in the United States alone. And so not to call it a pandemic, if it's like that, but how can we do better about protecting our loved ones and ourselves?
Patty, always a pleasure. Continue to lead on. Look forward to talking to you again.
All right. Well, you have a great day and keep safe.
Will do. Patty Olinger, the executive director of the Global Biorisk Advisory Council.